This is the Law 401 podcast, legal issues decoded for you, brought to you by Roger Williams University School of Law.
Welcome back to Law 401, Legal Issues Decoded. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michael Donnelly Boylan, and this is...
I'm Nicole. I'm one of the co-hosts, too.
I'm one of the associate deans at the law school. I am a non-lawyer and a non-Rhode Islander who brings an outsider perspective. And Nicole, who are you?
I'm a lawyer, a Rhode Islander, a librarian, and I'm also really excited about today's program.
I am super excited about today's program. We've invited on a guest, Blake Johnson, who was a 3+3 graduate of the university.
What does that mean?
The law school. Blake was a student who was able to accelerate her undergraduate degree and come to law school a year early.
You can do that?
Yes, we have a program at Roger Williams that does that, which is fantastic.
So a Blake is a hashtag double hawk.
Double hawk. Our second double hawk that we've had on so far.
Nice. And what I'm so happy about today is it's going to be fun. I know sometimes the episodes can get really serious and reflective and legal, but today we're going to do legal and fun. Tell us about what we're talking about.
That's right, because it's November, which means Rhode Island Comic-Con is back. And thousands of fans are getting ready to transform into their favorite heroes, villains, and everything in between. But behind the capes and lightsabers, there's a fascinating question, which is, what does law have to do with cosplay?
Law has to do with everything. And Blake, who is an attorney at Sheehan and Associates, where she focuses on creative industries and small business law, is going to tell us a little bit about it. She also served on the Rhode Island State Council of the Arts, and we'll hear that she knows firsthand what it's like to be a cosplayer and balance art, law, fandom, and intellectual property.
I don't think people can tell that she's into cosplay right now.
Oh, okay. Blake, introduce yourself.
Hello. Thank you guys so much for having me. And it's funny that you mentioned that I'm the 3+3 student because Michael knows all too well the struggle that I went through. We were very close together for months dealing with it because he called me and told me, he's like, you're in, when I took the LSAT. And I got my LSAT score like a week before orientation.
That's right.
But yeah, no, super excited to be here. I'll probably talk about this a little more later, but I love, yes, all things creative when it comes to my work and also what I do outside of work. And I think that's where the creative outlet came in. So as I sit here today as Chucky Finster from the Rugrats, I hope to, shed some light on.
Wait, so you don't wear this when you go to court?
I don't go to court at all.
Oh.
So there are lawyers that don't go to court?
Yes, there are. I'm a transactional attorney.
So if you're listening to this in your car, you really do want to check this out a little bit on YouTube to see Blake today.
Yeah.
All right. So before we dive into the law, let's talk about some basics. The word cosplay, of course, I had to research this, actually comes from Japan, coined in 1984 by Takahashi Nobuyuki after he attended a science fiction convention in Los Angeles. He combined the word costume and play, creating the word cosupure, which became cosplay. And apologies if I got any of those words mispronounced.
And now it's global. From small town libraries, I don't know if you saw in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, where they were a couple of weeks ago, they were having a Comic-Con.
And one of my best librarian friends is named the Cosbrarian, which is an even better portmanteau of cosplay and librarian.
And all the way to megacons like San Diego and right here in Providence. But it's all creativity, and cosplay sits right at the intersection of art, performance, and law.
Blake, tell us a little bit about your life as a cosplayer. What drew you to cosplay, and talk about the culture and community around it.
So it's really funny that you mentioned that. When I first started as a member of the Rhode Island Women Bar Association, they did a spotlight on me. I was very honored. And one of the things that tell us something that no one knows about you. And I was like, I actually model and cosplay. And I explained everything. So I really appreciate the history lesson. Some people don't know where it comes from. And that's what I had to explain to a couple folks. But I think it's, like I said earlier, it's just a creative outlet. I mean, the law and everything that I do within it can be, like you said, very reflective and deep, and it can get heavy. And luckily I am a transactional attorney, so I have clients that come to me and they're mostly talking about, business and stuff like that. But there are multi-million-dollar deals sitting on the table that if one little hair cracks, it's over. And then we have to think about what we can do and reflect. So when I come out of the workspace, I really just get to be a part of this awesome community. It's it's fun. It makes it's a really good support system for other people.
It sounds a little bit like a vacation. Like you're serious during the day, and this allows you to sort of become your full self.
Yeah, and it's also one of those things where like you said, it's something that's so far removed because you really can embody the character. Actually, like when I went to Comic-Con and I actually cosplayed as Chucky Finster, so I had the full regalia. I had to. It was funny. To win tickets to the Ren Fair, they were giving them away. They were like, they gave us a line. They were like, you have to say it in your Chucky Finster voice, and I like fully embodied it, and that's like amazing. So it's like it's also really chill and super supportive. Like one of my favorite cosplays was Jorgen von Strangle from Fairly Odd Parents, and I had like the big wand, and I did everything, and I was getting chased down so people could take pictures with me because everyone's just in awe of like the way you dress, and it's just amazing.
Are you more of a cosplay hero, a cosplay villain, a cosplay, reminiscing about childhood? What's like your vibe?
So I am very much a nostalgia bait person, but I'm also the type of person that like you're gonna find me as someone that you can easily recognize, but not a lot of people do. For example, Chucky Finster, Jorgen von Strangle, like all these people, like exactly. You see the big wand, you're gonna know who I am, but no, you never see it anywhere. People when we did Lilo and Stitch, everyone dresses up as Stitch, but no one dresses up as Lilo, and I was Lilo. So it's really funny to see that, and I think it's also cool. Like what makes the cosplay culture so awesome is that people do OCs, or original characters, for those who don't know, and it's just a really good way to like you come up with your own character, and then you just walk around with like these big staffs, or like people come as Pyramid Head or something like that. It's really, really good and great to see how creative people are. I mean, there was a Ghost Rider cosplayer. She was 16 and she had her motorcycle, and she dressed the full like fire and all, and we were like, whoa, like it was, and she's only 16. I'm like, you guys are great. It's amazing.
So I like that. One, it's creative.
Yeah.
I've never been to a Comic-Con cosplay. I know nothing of this. It's creative, but what you're also saying is kind of like Reddit. Like you can go in a little subreddit that only you know about, and you're so excited. And it's kind of the same thing. Like you see people who are bringing to life characters that probably not everybody knows.
Yes.
But you might hold really in your heart.
Yes.
So, Blake, the reason for this podcast is we're doing public legal education, right? We're trying to help people understand some basic legal concepts. And one of the things that we're using cosplay today for is a vehicle to discuss intellectual property.
Yeah.
So can you give us a definition for what intellectual property is?
Yeah, of course. So intellectual property, so like if we could, like there's a bunch of different intellectual property, and it covers a wide variety of things. So there's I would say three main buckets, which are copyright, trademark, and patent. I am not a licensed patent attorney. You have to be, for those of you who don't know, you have a separate license just to be a patent attorney. I was not going to school for that. I was not doing any of that. So I do trademark and copyright. But patent is basically just a unique, non-obvious invention that you can get protection for. And then copyright is usually people think of it as like one thing you get to protection. It's more of a bundle of rights. So you get like
oh, now we're back in law school.
Yeah.
This is what they talk about.
What is a bundle of rights?
Everybody who is listening is now having flashbacks and shudders.
Well, most people who are listening aren't lawyers. So what is a bundle of rights?
So it's literally just exactly what it sounds like. It's you have like I will say shout out Professor Kukis. She basically said it's just a bunch of sticks that are put together. So each stick represents like distribution, protection on non-use, things like that. So they're literally different types, and I won't go too deep because we'll be here forever. But each one stick that creates that bundle of rights is different protections you get within that copyright umbrella.
So like I would describe it as like, and Professor Teixeira de Souza literally has a bundle of sticks on her desk. Like,
love that.
It's not just that you own it.
Yeah.
It's that you sort of also own the ability to use it and not use it in particular ways.
Exactly.
So, distributing would be one of the rights in the bundle. And to think about all the different ways this thing that you own can be used or not used, replicated or not replicated, represented or not.
Yes.
In different forms, that's sort of the bundle.
And
it's a very lawyer thing.
Yes, the bundle of rights. And then copyright, and also like another thing that people do is they get copyright and trademark kind of like interchangeable, and they're very, very different. They're like two different bodies of law, two different offices, two different prices completely. And then
wait, what's the difference?
So, well, like I said, with copyright, it's that bundle of rights, and so the U.S. like Congress represents the U.S. Copyright Office itself, and it's $65 you pay once, but you only get it for your life plus 70 years if you're a person. If it's a corporation, it's 115 years. After that, it becomes what everyone calls public domain. That's what happened with Mickey Mouse and Winnie the Pooh and all that stuff. Trademark, on the other hand, is your kind of more of your branding, your logos, your trade dress. Like, for example, Taco Bell has the way their interiors look of their buildings. They got that trademark. That's protected.
Very 90s.
They're very 90s.
I just think Taco Bell is like walking back in time.
That's because you're old.
Oh, no.
Thank you. Blake, you're going to let him talk to me like this?
Oh my goodness gracious. That's why I said no. But I will say that but trade dress is a little weird, but it's mostly what you think of your logos, your brand names, things like that. And you kind of get that same bundle of rights, but you're actually getting it's just one thing that you're getting trademarked, and it just happens to have all of those things like licensing, distribution, things like that. But because of the fact that copyright is an expression in a fixed tangible medium, it's that physical expression, your books, your movies, your paintings, things like that. That's why that you have that bundle of rights versus a trade name that you can just slap on anything, or a logo. The trademark law is, so copyright's under the U.S. Code. Trademark is the Lanham Act, not to get super into the weeds of things. And trademark is, you have it until the dawn of time. You have it until as long as you pay those renewal fees, you have it. And it's $350 to $475
Would that
to start.
be the dusk of time?
Dusk of time, dawn of time, dust, whatever, until you're a mummy, bones, your grandkids, I don't know. And then you have it until you don't anymore, basically. You pay a 6-year renewal fee, then every 10 years after that, and blah, blah, blah. So, and that's, like I said, more of your branding versus what is a physical expression of stuff.
What is the difference between intellectual property and like real estate or real property?
So like real property, like you said, is like, think of like your grandmother's home you just inherited, or a land that you can build off of. Think of like the physical land you live on, or things like that, versus like personal property, which is like my stuffy here, or this mason jar, your wallet, things that are tangible personal property. And then, like I said, intellectual property is your intangible expression of what comes out of your mind, basically.
So your stuffed animal is your personal property, yes, but it is also the intellectual property of Nickelodeon.
Yes.
So let's bring this back to cosplay, right? Yep. If someone's dressed as a Marvel character, what laws are at play? Copyright, trademark, both? What's the deal if someone's dressed like that?
So I will say that technically anything like that is considered quote unquote infringement, but and I'll talk more about like fair use and stuff like that in a second, but it's basically stomping on like the weird line of, if someone, again, we talked about Nickelodeon and Reptar having protection with this, most likely through their movies as a copyright, and they could possibly get the silhouette or picture of Reptar as a trademark, as a logo, quote unquote. It's called a stylized mark. So when you do things like that, or even with celebrities, their name or likeness is styled. I mean, actually, Katy Perry sued an Australian company for using Katy Perry as a fashion brand, and the Katy Perry fashion brand ended up winning. But to go into that, it's like name, likeness, things like that, privacy issues that come into play. But the thing is, like I said, there's a defense called fair use, and then there's also like when monetization becomes an issue is really when it, hits the wall. So those are pretty much the fair.
So what I hear you saying is like, if I dress up as Iron Man, well, I'm technically like infringing Marvel. I'm sorry, I'm not. I'm using an example from a world I don't understand, but I think it's Marvel.
Yes.
So Marvel, who is owned by whoever, I know, I don't superhero.
Marvel is owned by Sony.
Right. So Sony can say, hey, you're infringing, stop that.
Pretty much.
But they probably aren't going to do it for some random person in Rhode Island at Comic-Con.
Yes.
But if I like put on my Iron Man suit and I start monetizing it in some way, and like there was a guy when I lived in Maine called the Iron Man of Maine, and he had like this whole big suit, and he would go to like children's parties dressed up as the character Iron Man. Maybe that's kind of where they start caring, is when you're like not just doing it for funsies, but you're making money off of their copyright,
trademark. It could be either one, honestly.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So I like, and this is probably going to be the bulk of what we talk about today, but so I may be repeating myself, which I apologize for. But the biggest thing, it's pretty much like money makes the world go round. So they really want a piece of the action if they think that you're making money off of what they've done. I will say that again, there is a defense called fair use, and we'll probably get into the nuts and bolts of that in a second. But it's more tolerated because of the fact that it's like. And also fair use for copyright and fair use for trademark aren't technically the same thing, but they're both a defense for the same purpose, I guess you could say. And it's pretty much just like, they don't care if you have fun and you dress up as Chucky Fenster just to show educational purposes, which is a fair use defense, if it's for education. And, it's more of, like I said, when it comes to, like I said, there's a piece of that pie that they want. But the good thing is, like, that's cool about this, and it's kind of going back to what we talked about before, is that with trademark and copyright, as soon as you start using the name, logo, whatever it is, you already have that trademark and copyright. When it comes to the USPTO, which is the United States Patent and Trademark Office, or the US Copyright Office, that's when you're registering it so you can get, more damages or actually file an infringement suit for copyright. So if you, start using your name out of nowhere, like, you already have that protection. And for trademark, you don't even have to have it registered to get the federal protection. You just, if you want to actually get the, more bang for your buck, because it is expensive to file suits. And that's another reason why they're not going to come after you, is because, like, it's usually not worth it.
And it's also good for them, as far as I can see, right? Like, when I've been in New York when Comic-Con's happening, right? And you're walking down the street and people are walking down the street in these characters, like, it actually builds buzz around your brand.
Exactly.
Then the question always is, where do they get the costumes, and is that actually being licensed back to the company, and do they care? Because honestly, when you're walking down the streets of New York and you see these characters, you're like, oh, that's free advertisement.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I was going to bring that up. It's like, not only is it not worth it, but half the time now, like you just said, now your branding is walking around and you have a walking billboard that you didn't have to pay for. Mm-hmm. And that's what also, like, helps with, and also building a community and a rapport with your own brand. Like, Warner Brothers with DC, Sony with Marvel, like, they want their clientele, their customers, their whoever viewers to see their company as like a, hey, we built a community. This is like a fan base we have. And now you're walking around wearing their stuff and they're like, that's awesome. It's just building up that rapport. So
I think the Babadook, the horror movie, and it, like, sort of took on a life of its own in gay culture. Yeah. And, like, I would be interested to find out if the person who put out that movie and created that character knew this was going to happen. But I think they're probably really excited that it has taken on a life of its own. Yeah. So there's some, like, balance or calculus you have to do, like, when am I going to sue versus when am I not? Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about fan art? So, like, I think about the example of 50 Shades of Grey being sort of this fan version of Twilight. I'm not suggesting that any of this is quality. I'm just using it as a popular example. Good. And is that okay? Do they have to, like, kick back money from Twilight? Like, how does fan art work?
It's kind of the same thing. It's like where are you making fan art in the backyard of your house with your friends to laugh at it? Probably they won't care. Are you now distributing it through multiple distributors? They're probably going to care. So it's, like I said, this is where it comes into, like, the fair use, and the monetization of it. So fair use for copyright, at least, is like, is it transformative, non-commercial, limited impact?
Wait, what does transformative mean?
So basically, you're taking bits and pieces of it. It's comparable to parody. It's like when you take, something, for example, what was it? There was something, a Twilight fan fiction that they had done, which was basically taking a parody. I can't remember the name of it. I can see it, but I can't remember the name of it. But they take it and they really just make it a huge, like, caricature of the movie itself. And it's so not, like, you can obviously tell it's about Twilight. Like, that's not even a question. But it's so far-fetched from what the actual movie was that they're like, okay.
So you're not... There's no chance that you're going to confuse it with the original. Is that in one of the Is that one of the tests?
Yeah. So like I said, there's a difference between copyright and trademark. That's one of the tests for trademark. So likelihood of confusion is a big thing that I deal with all the time because I actually this month alone, I've done like 17 trademarks. And likelihood of confusion is something that that's really important. They say like if a consumer is looking at these two different marks and could think that they're from the same origin, then that's a problem. So they would know when it comes to parody, like this is no way Stephanie Meyer's work. Like this is no way involved in that. And that's when it's like, oh, well, we now know. And the same thing with fan art is like, if you can tell this is coming from like the source is different, the actual identity of the artwork is different. It's very much something like that. But it's with trademark, it's mostly just like brand protection and consumer confusion is kind of like that, mark test. And then with copyright, like I said, fair use, there's purpose, nature, how much it's used, and then market effect. They want to know how, again, monetization, how well, is Coca-Cola, obviously really bad example because they're such a big brand, but is Coca-Cola now losing sales because someone else is making Coke out of the back of their,
I think in Delaware, where I went to high school, there was a place called Kennedy Fried Chicken. So it was still KFC,
yeah,
but it was a different K. And I think like that's a good example of like, if you had to figure out like, are they taking
that name?
Like, right. Like they're clearly selling the same product and they're in a market that could have a KFC.
Yeah.
A Kentucky Fried Chicken, not a Kennedy Fried Chicken. Like, that's what I think about when I think about that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of key cases too. Like, I won't go into the laws and they do a whole brief of them. That's crazy. But I think like something that we talked about when it comes to do they even care about their costumes coming from the right origin? Actually, in some cases they do. There was a case, I'm trying to remember of it. I think it was like the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders that there was someone using the outfit and selling it, but not through DCC. And I think I remember this case because I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. But
yeah, I was gonna say, hold on, you just called it DCC, which makes me think you're either a fan of the Dallas Cowboys, which I'm sorry,
at least I'm not a Jets fan. But anyways, continue.
I'm even more sorry, and now I'd like to make fun of you.
How do we get on football?
But
I love football. Sorry, that was my
you
fault.
might also be a fan of Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders making the team or the new Netflix
documentary.
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Me
Sorry.
also. I've watched every season of Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders making the team
because they are the best cheerleaders in the league. Anyways, but go away from that. The reason I brought it up though is because of the fact that like people were selling Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders outfits, and some of them were, a couple of places were being sued, and the one that I mentioned was considered parody, so it wasn't actually considered infringement. But there are places where people like will buy Disney costumes and it's not from the origin and it's not far enough away from the actual like origin or the way it looks, where they will sue and they win. So again, it's like Disney is such a big company that they have the resources to go after somebody if they want to, but also again, we'll probably talk about more about cease and desist in a little bit, but yeah.
Let me ask you this. So like, if I'm the person walking in that costume, let's say I'm one of the people heading to Comic-Con this weekend, right? Have cosplayers been sued, or have the distributors of the costumes been sued? Like what are the cases that are out there about cosplaying?
So again, this is like big companies, even though they have the resources to expend to file suit, they still want deep pockets. They're not going to go after a 5th grade teacher who looks like Iron Man walking into Comic-Con. I guarantee you it's not going to happen. Could they? Yes, theoretically. Will they? Probably not. So again, all of this is not legal advice, and I'm not advising anyone to do anything illegal, but the likelihood of success.
We are not advising anyone to do anything illegal.
This is not legal advice at all. But I'm just saying that like the chances of that, being a problem.
Have we gotten this far in the podcast and not told anybody that? What? No,
I always have
not giving legal advice.
Listen, I always have to give that disclaimer.
Right, because every time you go to a party, somebody asks you a legal question as a lawyer.
Absolutely, 1,000%, actually.
It's what we say after we say our names.
I'm glad I don't have that problem.
Hey, I'm Nicole, and I'm not giving you legal advice. Yeah. I'm not your lawyer. I'm a lawyer.
Actually, that's not true. When you were a dean at the law school, there are people who that come to me for legal advice, and I'm like, I'm not a lawyer. They're like, but you've been working in law for 30 years. And I'm like, no, I am not a lawyer.
That part. But no, so it's usually handled with, and I just mentioned this, but it's usually handled with a cease and desist. So it's actually really funny.
What's a cease and desist?
So it's a letter, usually a letter, or a warning, notice, whatever you want to call it, that says you're infringing, you're doing this, you're distributing without a license, basically whatever the legal principle is, and says, basically stop it or we're going to file suit. Most of the time, again, and it's funny, I'll bring up an example. There's a guy, if he ever hears this, I'm so sorry for forgetting your name, but I went to, there's a really awesome event that happens once a month in Providence, or in Rhode Island in general, called Pachakacha. And
it's called what?
Pachakacha, which is actually also Japanese. It's the onomatopoeia for laughter in Japanese. But anyway, so it is.
I'm feeling like next month we need a live podcast of the three of us at Pachakacha.
Oh my God, it's amazing. It's so fun.
Pachakacha X.
So the reason I brought it up is because what it is there was a Japanese architect who basically realized that architects, when they decide to talk about their projects, take 12 million years to do so, and they're like, oh, glazing over eyes, everything like that. So it's 20 slides, 20 seconds, and that's all you get per slide. And he was talking about, he's a quahog digger, but he also has a band called Harry and the Potters. And Warner Brothers sent him a cease and desist because that's too close to Harry Potter. And I don't know how he thought he was going to get away with it, but they ended up working out a deal. I can't remember what it was, but most of the time, that's why we always say like 2% of cases go to trial, because you settle out of court 9 times out of 10 because of the court fees. They're usually not worth it. And then once you go past the court fees and all the plaintiffs and defendants' answers and pleadings and blah, you get into like the depositions and stuff like that. And do you know how much this costs? A lot. And then more court filings, and it's just not enough work. And even though, again, Warner Brothers and Disney have the resources, they're not going to really go after that, like I said, that one 5th grade teacher who's walking around, blah, blah, blah. So cosplayers usually aren't sued. It's not obviously impossible because even though they weren't cosplayers, their band was too close to Warner Brothers trademark. But the cease and desists do happen. So you're likely going to get sued by the distributor is probably going to get sued, but the cosplayer is probably just going to get a cease and desist, maybe.
So speaking of Disney, I heard that Disney has some kind of rule that says that you can't be in like a full costume and go to Disney.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Is that legal?
Yes, it's true and legal. The reason they have that policy is more for like safety, especially if someone's walking around in a mask and they can't identify them, they don't know who they are, things like that. And also kid confusion. And also they have full costumes with the workers, and you don't want to confuse who's a worker and stuff like that. So that's pretty much why they have that policy. And the reason it's legal is because it's private property. When you have, we go back to that real property, tangible stuff again. When you have your own private property, those laws are different than on intellectual property laws and public property. Public property is when the government owns it and they have let people in, blah, blah, blah. But government action and private action are treated very differently. Government action is where the constitutional law comes in, and we won't go into that, mumbo jumbo. But because of the fact, think of it as like a dress code when you go to a private school. They have that they're able to do that, especially if they have, a good, not tangible, but a good reason for it. Like it seems like safety issues.
One of the bundle of rights that they have is to make a rule that says you can't dress in a full costume because of safety reasons. Yeah,
pretty much. It's more just because of the fact and that's that bundle under their private property rights, not under their intellectual property rights technically. But yeah, it's still that bundle that you get about having real property is you get the opportunity to protect your real property. Everyone has a right to protection when it comes to their property, and there are ways that they go about, and also their brand too is like they don't want someone coming in and then ruining Disney, and then everyone has a horrible time. So yeah, it's about also there was a case on it too. I think it's Shield versus Walt Disney Parks, and they were suing because they wanted to, walk around in full costume, and the court sided with Disney, saying that's their private property; they can do kind of what they want. So no costumes because safety.
So 24 hours ago, as of this taping, I was in Times Square, and literally there's Minnie Mouse and Spider-Man, and I got my picture taken with Iron Man because Titus Burgess and Kimmy Schmidt, and. Is that legal? Like, they're looking for tips. They're making tips. They immediately put their hand out. Is it legal for them to be in these costumes and charge money?
So here comes everyone's favorite answer, the lawyer answer. It depends.
Really?
Nicole knows. So this is where your First Amendment rights come in also. If it's freedom of expression and freedom of speech. Because they're voluntary tips and they're not saying like, yeah, even though they're saying to take a picture with us, you have to pay me, but you don't have to take a picture with them. You can just kind of like leave them alone or whatever. Because of that, it falls within that expression under the First Amendment. So there's more of a defense to the infringement than an excuse for non-infringement or saying that it's not infringement. There was a case, and I'm gonna butcher the name, Santopietro or something like that, versus Howell, where it was exactly that. It was infringement on someone's costume. And because they were accepting voluntary tips and saying, here's the kind of terms and conditions of you working with me or whatever, they allowed that. And the court sided with the quote unquote infringer. And I mean, you still always have that risk of infringement, especially if you are making exorbitant amounts of money and it comes to like, people who, again, go to conventions as guests, as the cosplayers, and they're, seeking out, autographs and whatever. But again, if you're like, so that's where it crosses that line. If you're getting voluntary tips and it's like in Times Square and people can walk behind you, not really. But if you're going to a convention and you're dressing up as Iron Man, saying you're Iron Man and getting people to come up and take the autographs and stuff like that, that's where the real risks come from. And there's another case, Disney versus Cinderella. I can't remember what it is. And
Disney
that's what happened.
Sued Cinderella?
Not Cinderella, not Cinderelli, as Gus would say. No, Sorelli, I think is what it's called. And it was, and the person who was in quote unquote infringing actually did lose the suit, and because of the fact that it was that crossing that gray area where the it depends became a not so it depends, and they were sued. So it is a legal gray area, like almost everything else, unfortunately. But it like you could think of two buckets of expression protected, too much money being made. Like those are kind of, so yeah, tips are usually fine, but you can probably get in trouble if you're branding yourself as Iron Man. Let's just say that.
So let me ask this. For Halloween this year, which will have just passed, I will have dressed up as Marty McFly in a fairly completely authentic costume where I've bought the exact Levi jeans and the exact sneakers and the watch from Back to the Future 2 and you name it. Is it illegal for me to go on Instagram and post a photo of that?
Not, again, it depends. But it's one of those things where like, again, it goes back to the personal posting versus the monetization. It's like if you are doing it in a commercial versus non-commercial context, that's where the biggest thing comes into play. If you're walking around as Marty McFly and you're like, hey, I had so much fun on Halloween, and posted just to show on your socials that you had fun on Halloween, again, generally fine. And also, again, it might just be like, hey, it's more publicity for our stuff. Come talk to you. Like, again, they're probably going to be more excited than they are. But also, I'm sorry. I'm really, again, I'm saying this.
Who is Marty McFly?
No. I
just wanted to take the opportunity to make him feel old.
No.
Why couldn't you just go along with it?
Who is Marty
McFly?
I know.
I can't.
No, I was going to say, who has the time to sit down and go through everyone's Instagram posts to say, oh my God, are you monetizing this? We'll usually use a software that says, like, is someone using the monetization feature on Instagram to boost this post or something? Oh. So if you're, most of the time, they're not going to sit down through everyone's Instagram. No one has time for that. So, again, very low risk, but it's, again, everything, unfortunately, is still copyright infringement. But whether you have a defense to it or whether they're going to actually take the time to sue you, unlikely. But when it comes to commercial advertisements, you're promoting an ad on TikTok, or you're, selling merch on Etsy, that's when things, come into play. So back to that Disney versus Sorelli, I think it's called. Cinderelli. We'll call it Cinderelli, as Gus would say. That was characters for commercial use, and that was they consider that infringement.
Okay, so can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
About beyond, like, this is federal.
Yeah.
What if I go on Etsy and I buy something from a different country? I was going to say the fictional place of Monrovia.
Monrovia.
How did I know that was going to be brought up?
Where would I, like, what is it still a copyright infringement if it's happening in a different country? Does it matter that I'm buying it in America? Like, or what if I, like, buy it in a totally different country and it's sold in a totally different country? Does copyright pass your borders?
It can. It depends. It can.
I knew that was going to happen.
I mean, yeah. Hello. So, international copyright and trademark law is based upon each country. So, federally, if you have a trademark or copyright registered federally in the United States, you are every single state and territory within the United States is where you're protected. If someone copyrights something in China or India or Monrovia, then they would have to get it registered in whatever other jurisdiction internationally. So,
so Disney has to get their a copyright in all the other countries, not just, they can't just like file it once and be like, it's mine. They have to go through the process.
But Disney's also a bad example because they have Disney Japan, Disney France, Disney. So they do have those, and they will take the time because they know they have such a, monetizable product that's a hot commodity. People will copy and paste it anywhere they can. So they did their best to do it otherwise. But and that's another thing too, is that because we have a state-based country, each state has its own copyright and trademark laws as well. So you can get a state trademark versus a federal trademark versus a common law trademark, which again, all the weeds of things. But internationally, if you are purchasing something that's not, one, also just be careful of the quality if you're buying internationally. But if you're purchasing something from another country that's not copyright rated or trademarked in that country, and then you bring it back here, again, it's a weird legal gray area because it is copyrighted here, but it's not in that country. They have the right to distribute it, but you have to be careful with what you do once you receive it. You can't then resell it. You can't you can't get it from wholesalers in other countries and then distribute it here. But if you get Little Reptar and it's not copyrighted in India, let's say, or Monrovia, and then you get it here and you just want to have it as a stuffy because it's cheaper, I guess, then they're kind of SOL.
So cosplay, right? I mean, we've talked a lot about the law aspect of it today, but it's also about community, right? One of the things we talk about a lot here is issues of inclusion.
Yes.
And how does inclusion show up in the cosplay community?
I think it's probably one of the most inclusive communities that I've physically been a part of or seen firsthand. It's like, again, even the reason it's so inclusive is, for example, Chunky Finster is a toddler who is a male presenting toddler. I am a female presenting cisgender woman who is in her age that we won't need to talk about. And
she's a young cisgender.
Exactly. But I am not Chucky Finster as a person, but I'm dressed like it. So that's like, I think what makes it so awesome is that so many people gender bend and things like that. It's like I said, it's really a sense of self-expression and belonging. I mean, you're going to see, and I'll probably mention this later, but you're going to see all walks of life and all different types of characters. And for example, like I said, you're going to get the nostalgia baiters like me, or people in those really like one-off indie movies that only those select few are going to know. So representation is important, but it's more important as like, I am embodying this character that just makes me feel like the best version of me than it is like representation when it comes to your race or gender, ethnicity, things like that. And it does play a huge role, but it's more of like the type of character you're choosing and less about like, oh, we're gonna, talk about, you're neurodivergent versus neurotypical. Like, it's just, you just happen to pick a character that could be, like I said, male presenting and you're female presenting. Mm-hmm. And it's so awesome because it's probably also one of the most supportive. And like, ignorance is not a big thing. Like, it's just a bunch of nerds just who know each other, who know what characters you are, and we're just chilling and hanging out. And again, and that's why I said when it comes to OCs or original characters, like I mentioned before, like people have that much for expression to create characters their own and then walk around as them and know, and everyone's like, hey, who are you? And they're like, I made this character up. And they're like, that's awesome. And they walk away. Like, yeah.
I like the idea that people's art and these characters are so impactful on people across sort of gender lines, race lines, language, like, but you see these characters and there's something about them that you recognize, and it shows just how powerful they are, but also how sort of unifying and powerful art and creativity is. Yeah. And I think in law, we don't always celebrate that. Yeah. We're like not known for our creativity. I mean, we are in our arguments, but not necessarily in other things. Yes. And so I love that you're able to bridge like the power of art and creativity with the sort of seriousness of being a lawyer.
Yeah, and I think that's what made me also get into art and entertainment law itself, is because I wanted that more creative outlet. I mean, I have to be really creative with my negotiations, but that only takes me so far. And I think that like also what makes me really want to do cosplay and sometimes modeling, because I cosplay at cons, but I also cosplay in my modeling. And it's really just a community of lifting each other up. And I mean, granted, we are still a bunch of humans who are walking around. So I've had some people say some bold things around me or to my significant other about my body. And that was really crazy, but it's not like a derogatory thing. It's just like a lot of people have no filter and they'll just say something like, oh yeah, she has a really nice whatever, or she whatever. And then they'll just walk away.
People without filters can be nice.
Exactly. I mean, I have no filter, but everyone thinks that I'm mean, but I'm not, I promise. But I think it's also the reason that it's like that. And the reason you feel more safe, even with someone making a bold comment, is because a lot of these unspoken rules exist in the community of lifting each other up, but also conventions. Like, for example, I'll use, since Comic-Con is coming up in a few days.
Will you be attending?
Yeah, you got to come find me. I'm not going to tell you what I am, because you have to just search. Good luck though, because I always look different. But I think like ARE, or Altered Reality Entertainment, who hosts Comic-Con, they have a really robust like protection policy and like security and all protocols and everything like that, because they really have a zero tolerance for harassment. But the thing is, like, even though they have these real robust regulations in place, you don't really see a lot of them being enforced, because of the fact that people just understand what you're going to a convention to look at other people's cool costumes and also really dope art and meet cool people. You're not there to like harass people. So like, I think that's what's awesome.
I think it's like another way where law and cosplay meet is with the protections for the people who are attending, and also people who are the artists, because I think that there is just like a human impulse when you see someone dressed up as something striking to like kind of like reach out and touch them. And that is an impulse that is not tolerated without like some level of consent. And so I know that I've heard specifically women talk about like their hair being touched or their costume being touched. And I appreciate that the organization that sponsors this makes it clear that there is no tolerance for that. And this is not the place for it, which I guess you're saying then like becomes a part of the fabric and of the culture. Yeah,
it's really awesome too, because like I said that I'm not, like I said, we are human, like you said, and we that does happen, but it's not such a frequent occurrence that like everyone, they're like, oh, we have to remind everybody what the rules are. They're on their website, obviously, so people know them, but like it's such a thing where like people are so distracted by like, again, there's tattoo artists there, and then people who do amazing artwork, and also the celebrities that are there that are coming. I mean, my favorite movie is The Night Before Christmas, and Chris Sarandon, who plays Jack or voices Jack, was there, and I was like beelining for him. And like, you have those people that are like awesome and who are bringing back your childhood or something like that, or the people who dress up like Peter Griffin who are there as cosplay guests. And like, you just have, the people are so involved in that yes, it does happen where they may not think about like, oh my God, I shouldn't have touched her hair, but it's never with malice intent, I should say.
So we talk a lot about the rule of law here on the podcast. And within the fandom world, I think there's its own version of rule of law. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think like, again, when it comes to the like, and that's why I brought up ARE's like Comic-Con code, is because it's really just kind of something that we all, to an extent, obviously, because we're not like, if we go to other cons or whatever, they have their own rules, or Ren fairs or whatever the place is, because it's not just Comic-Con conventions.
There might be somebody out there, maybe like my mom, who doesn't know what a Ren fair is. Can you just break it down?
So the Renaissance Fair, I actually just went to King Richard Renaissance Fair. Hi, Nicole's mom. We went to, I'm so sad. This is my first year I went. I should have gone earlier, but whatever. So the King Richard's Renaissance Fair, there's a bunch of ones that happens kind of sporadically, and it's exactly what it sounds like. You can step back in time and you get to see jousting and people making like mugs out of like steel, and it's really cool. It's just like you immerse yourself in this world back in time, and it's just like, and they actually have like mutton, and well, it's just really big turkey legs, but basically but they have like mutton and like things like this, and then they're really immersed, and people who dress up as like ferries and things like, it's awesome, but it's just also a really cool, like, free vibe. Like, you're just there to just chill. And I think that's also part of this code that we talk about, or these laws that we have amongst ourselves, is the fact that, like, you're there to really meet, like, awesome, dope people. You're not there to just be a weirdo, in the sense of, like, what the law would say is a weirdo, not like literally. I mean, I'm a weirdo, but not like that. So I think it's one of those things where, like, you're there to just, again, fellow nerds nerding out on things. Like, I've also played D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, for those who don't know, and people really get immersed into that. They'll show up in costume and they'll have their, like, dice and their D20s and whatever, which is a 20-sided die, and they'll be, like, themed, and we'll have, like, little miniatures and music, or you could just come to someone's house and just play it. So it's amongst just that community, they just know, and it's just like a thing that it's just like who the people are. Yeah. So
as we sort of bring this to a close, right, I want you to give us some actionable things you could tell someone walking into Comic-Con right now in the next couple days. What should they know about how the law impacts them and whether they should be worried?
So again, I think if there's big takeaways, we could just talk about, making sure if you're doing it for fun, you pretty much have nothing to worry about. I mean, again, realize where those lines are drawn. If you are, posting a selfie on Facebook because you're dressed like Batman, that's probably fine. If you're making a mug for yourself that's the shape of Reptar and you just drink out of it and you're fine. But if you're mass producing, like, Harry Potter books, you're probably going to get sued. So
can I ask a question really that I think that would be helpful for people to know? Is it okay in the cosplay community? Because one of the things, sorry, I'll back up. One of the things I heard you say is that there are rules and people are aware of them. And so one thing is I would never know to look up the rules. So I think that's a takeaway that we all have, that there is these, like, private spaces with their own private rules, and it's good to respect the culture and to read them. But can I just come up to a person dressed in a costume, take a picture of it, and post online? Or do I have to ask them first? Like, how does that work in the cosplay community in Rhode Island specifically?
I would say that, like, there's, an unspoken rule that it's just polite to ask. It's not like you have to. I mean, because of the fact that this is where the privacy rights come into play. If you're in a public space, you technically, depending on how public it is, like, for example, if I go to the mall and start videotaping somebody, and I'm just walking around, that's a public space, and the right to privacy is a lot more diminished. So your likelihood of success of suing somebody for taking a video of you without your permission is going to probably be abysmal. But if you're in someone's, for example, if you're invited to someone's house and they're in the bathroom, like, that's obviously taking it too far.
Please don't do that.
So please don't do it in any bathroom, whether it's public or private, because that is going to take it too far and you will get sued and you will lose. But it's one of those things where, like, your right to privacy is kind of small in a public space like that. Like, yes, you did pay to go to a place that's owned privately, but it's open to the public. It's a public convention. So your right to privacy is smaller. So you don't technically have to ask for permission, especially if you know that, like, for example, with me, someone was dedicated enough to literally be chasing me down for 15 minutes, and they told me this, to take a picture of me as Jorgen von Strangle, which I was honored, but also, wow, the dedication. So people are just like that. But again, it's one of those things where, like, just be polite and be honest and understanding that there's consent that should be had. But if you do it and you don't ask, because sometimes it's just hard to, no one's going to be like, oh my God. Like, usually people don't care.
So as much as I've loved talking about Comic-Con, I think the thing I've enjoyed the most about this episode is actually the fact that you are showing some of our viewers that lawyers don't have to be all dark and stuffy.
Yeah.
That you can both be a lawyer, be in areas where you're not necessarily representing clients in court, and that you can also have fun outside of work.
Oh, yeah. And I think that the biggest compliment I get all the time is, you're a lawyer. I was not expecting you to say that. I'm like, thank you. Like, and obviously there are some times where people say they weren't expecting it because I'm young and I'm an African-American, or African-American presenting, I should say, person of color who has a nose ring and whatever. So they don't take me seriously, and that's where it becomes insulting. But 9 times out of 10, it's just because they're like, oh, you're awesome. I wasn't expecting you to be a lawyer. And I was like, thanks. It's really,
well, that was dark right there.
I'm just Just saying.
You're awesome. I wasn't expecting you to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
That hurt my heart.
I'm sorry, but you're also awesome. So
Thanks.
I think that people, if you say I'm a lawyer, they'd be like, what?
Yeah, there's such a narrow view of what people conceive of as lawyers.
Yes.
And I think you're right. This shows people that there isn't just one type of lawyer. They look different. They might have a reptar with them, and they're still graduated from law school and passed that bar exam.
Yeah.
So we always end with a fun question. So, Blake,
Yes.
if you could live one day inside any fictional universe, costume and all, which would it be and who would you be? And you're allowed to have multiple answers if you feel like you need to, because I'm sure you have more than one.
Yeah. So that's always so hard. I've cosplayed, and I know like part of that is like, it's like awesome if I've already done it. So I've cosplayed a lot. And if, for those of you who want to find me at spooky_Bayesian on Instagram. But anyways,
Bayesian, can you spell it?
Bajan. My family's from, well, my mom's side, some of them are from Barbados, and there's a specific part, and we're called Bajans. So anyways, so it's so hard. My first thought is, so it's really funny, Totally Spies, because of the fact that like they're the only cartoon that actually changes their clothes every day. But then I was like, what am I thinking? My standard of life is Morticia Addams. So I refuse to live any differently besides the food, because I eat some weird stuff. But other than that, like living like Morticia and Gomez is like the standard of living. So even though I'm not a dress person, she wears dresses all the time. But I did a photo shoot as Morticia Addams. So I was like, yeah, I could live like this, live my best life as the Addams family.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. So no, I would want to live like Marty McFly with a time machine and roll around. But I was, I think, 3 when Star Wars comes out, which completely dates me. And so that whole universe, I would want to be a Jedi Knight for certain. Although if you asked my husband, he would tell you I really want to be Ariel and Little Mermaid. And it's not like I didn't go as her dad last year for Halloween. So
I love it.
First of all, what about the Ewoks? They're so cute. Wouldn't you want to be a little Ewok?
They were a big mistake in that universe.
What? They're so cute. It was like my favorite part of the whole thing.
They were selling out to children and you were a child.
Oh my God, but they were so cute. I had a little Ewok villain.
Yeah, you were the right age for that. I was not.
That's hilarious.
I don't have a good answer. So I've been watching Rick and Morty. I just am. We just watched all 8 seasons.
Good Lord.
Yeah. When we start something, we're very dedicated to it.
Clearly. That's
And
good.
my favorite Rick and Morty character is Mr. Meeseeks. But that would be weird, and it's not a very good costume. So like that's not great. But I do love Mr. Meeseeks, and it never ends well. So it's not even really a good answer. So I'm gonna have to say
Daria. I think you should be Daria.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. I love it. I could see it.
I was gonna say I really, really, really like Anne of Green Gables. And she has such just a spicy spirit. And I love her. I would love to be Anne of Green Gables or her bosom friend Diana in Anne of Green Gables.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Blake, for joining us. I know we've gone long today, audience, but this is the rare time we get to be fun, and we've enjoyed that. So, Nicole, tell people where they can find us.
You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube, especially this episode where we have our lawyer guest wearing a cosplay outfit, and me in my not quite cosplay but feeling very Magic School Bus in
That's what I was kidding.
in my dinosaur dress.
I love it.
You can also find us on any of your social media channels. We have things there. I would really appreciate if you liked us, if you subscribed, if you wrote a review. If you're a cosplayer and you want to hear more about intellectual property law, write us a review. You can also email us at law401podcast@our rwu.edu. We love hearing from people. Share with your friends. That's the most helpful thing as far as I'm concerned.
And all our new social channels are Law 401 Podcast. Check us out on TikTok. Check us out on Facebook and LinkedIn, and anywhere you're finding your podcast. So thank you all for joining us today. We've enjoyed this conversation so much, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in to Law 401, Legal Issues Decoded from Roger Williams University School of Law. We'd like to thank our guests on the show today. The Law 401 podcast wouldn't be possible without the generous funding from the Hassenfeld Family Foundation. We'd also like to thank executive producer from RWU Law, Helga Melgar, the RWU Marketing and Communications team, podcast social media manager, Ali Michelle Conti, and our production partner, Focus Forward Media. The opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Roger Williams University or our partners. For more Law 401 episodes and updates, follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts on YouTube or visit law.rwu.edu.